I believe we've completed all of the items on page 1 of our agenda, and we're assuming that the ASB item was this morning. And so we will go to item 10.5, Council Boards and Committees discussion. And I just have to say thank you to Ariana, who has put in lots of time to sort through this. And the final thing is to have a look at the spreadsheet, I believe, and to give feedback if there's more feedback or something else to add on the attachment that she put in with the yellow highlighted times and stuff, correct, Ariana?
That's, I don't know if we need other information from council. I want to thank Jackie for her work, because she pulled all the times from 2019 so we could kind of average out the time spent during each meeting per person. What's before you is, I guess we're asking if there are committees or boards that you no longer want to be a part of, because that was the whole idea behind this. The ones that are highlighted on yellow in the spreadsheet are the ones that there's no documentation like an agreement or bylaw saying that we have to be a part of. So those are your candidates to get out of. I guess that's it. It's up to you now.
So you're talking about the package of 11 pages with, yeah, okay. And so these are ones that really we have added on over the years, and how that happened, which is a variety of ways of how it happened. But these are ones that aren't established by a county bylaw, agreement, policy, or other official documentation. And it's interesting because there's quite a variety of them. And Brian, you were Bow River Basin Council last few years, so it seems like a fairly important thing these days. But
and you know, it's I guess if anything, my role was a little different, I guess. You know, I represented council as far as providing information back, but I was asked to sit on the board too, which that's coming to an end. And so my involvement was a little higher level than what we normally did. And so I felt that, you know, that was a real valuable tool to provide that information back to the board from a rural Albertan that really sits on a board that, other than somebody from the irrigation district, that's the only other rural person that sits on there. And that was always the general manager of one of the districts. But as far as what they provided, it was everything that can be done there, like from the role that I was asked to sit on, can be done from a Zoom meeting. Like, you don't have to go there. They have quarterly forms, and they should be done. Like, I should not have to drive to a quarterly form to listen to somebody for 2 or 3 hours present, because that's all it was. There was some opportunity to ask questions back, which is done, but that can also be done in a quarterly form. There isn't really an opportunity to provide input into your area, giving feedback back. So it's an information conduit, but it's sort of one way.
so Brian, like, this didn't mean that every other municipality in the region had a rep at that board.
The membership allows you to be there. They even invite people that aren't members to encourage the membership. But yeah, this is as a matter of fact, Vulcan County was not a member for a number of years. They are now. Wheatland is. But yeah, beyond that, I'm not sure who else would, but it's not a mandatory board, absolutely.
And your membership, like, they want they want municipal members.
Well, so the way the board is set, the board of directors is set up, is you have industry representatives, you have representatives from Alberta Environment, Water for Life, and then the City of Calgary has, and then the stewardship groups like the Highwood and the Ghost. They have two people that sit on there. They decide who they want from those groups, and then municipal elected. I was the only municipal elected person on that board, and Martin Shields was my predecessor, and now it's going to be Jason Schneider. He's offered to take that position in October. I mean, it still can change. If he's not reelected, then they'll have to look for somebody else. But they tasked me with looking for somebody that had an agriculture background, and I had that conversation with you too, Molly, trying to come up with names, and that was where we went to. So, and it moves it around too. Then like it shouldn't always be a County of Newell or person. I mean, they mostly are looking for some variety as far as the input, but yeah.
So do we give them money?
Yes.
1,000? Okay. So what I'm hearing is that it's not as though every council has a member at this board. It's completely different than
like the City of Brooks belongs, and Norm Jerstein, he often went to the meetings with me, and not the meetings, the forums.
forums.
Yeah.
They're not decision.
No.
So it's like anyone from our council could go to those forums, right? If you wanted to sign up.
Again, but I think COVID has taught me that those forums you're just as valuable sitting in front of your computer, because you're receiving information.
Yeah.
I mean, other than at a coffee break, sitting and talking to somebody, and I'm not going to minimize that point, but it really, for a 4-hour drive to the Calgary Telecenter, you're better off sitting in front of your computer receiving the information that way.
What are your thoughts, folks? How would you access that information if you weren't they send out the information to everyone?
Not the forums. Some of them, the presenters allow it to be distributed, but not always. It's proprietary as far as who's doing the presentation. A lot of the science forums, they don't. It really is a hit and miss. There's no promise. I guess I'm all in favor of somebody being on this committee. I just think there has to be limitations as far as the expense part of it, because I'm going to reiterate, you don't need to travel. You can watch this in front of a screen and spend the couple hours that it takes to, your time is far better spent just receiving that information that way.
Anne-Marie?
So to Brian, would it make sense that we stay a member, pay the $1,000, but the contact email would be maybe Mark or Jeff, where the information goes, and when there is a form, and so that information could come back to council from staff, and then the council could decide if it's worthwhile sending someone or letting them go online and listen in. So instead of a direct contact with a council member, we pay our membership and the contact will be a staff member.
And that way you could have a variety of people attend those forums, like over the course of the year?
I actually like that suggestion. Sorry, Ariana's got her hand up.
I think the email contact currently is the administration email, and then I just forward them to you anyway.
So it could come onto a council agenda in the future? Possibly? For someone who's interested?
It won't fill the form component, and that's the best part of the group. Because they send a weekly newsletter, basically, and it just gives you the Reader's Digest version about what's going on with the basin and what they're working on, the projects that they fund, and you know, if they need a new person for whatever, if they're looking for input. But it won't satisfy the form, which is a real important part of it. Like, that was, for me, the most valuable part of it, because there's really good information that comes out of there.
Would they announce in the newsletter what kind of forum is coming up?
They do.
That's the part I'm after, and then staff would forward that information, and council can decide.
Yeah, they always have a list of speakers, who's on the list, when the dates, the times, so on, and they publish it well ahead of time, usually a month ahead. And they're quarterly, so it's not like every...
It's almost like a professional development opportunity, yeah.
I actually like Anne Marie's suggestion where, you know, it can come to all of council or to somebody that's designated, you know, whether it's UMAT or somebody, and then redistribute it. And then if there's somebody that's willing to say, hey, you know what, that's something that really piques my interest as far as that particular forum item, that they're provided the opportunity to listen in on that forum.
Ariana, does that help? Yeah, so you've been getting the information anyhow, so it just perhaps can be forwarded in a bigger way. So what's new with the Badlands? Anything?
NRTA, Canadian Badlands, Safe Communities, Rural Crime Watch, those four are covered already. We have the RCMP come in, do their reports every couple of months. They have our Safe Communities coordinator come in and do a report. So I think we're doubling up on that with council involvement. And it's the same with NRTA and Canadian Badlands. We have Jamie McIntosh, who is through economic development, and she works from the city of Brooks for both of us. She also works for the county. So if Jamie could come and do a report every couple of months, or if she reports to Economic Development Joint Services, then again, we're doubling up. So there's no need for a councillor on Canadian Badlands anymore and not on NRTA.
Is Canadian Badlands going to survive?
Probably not.
Okay. So what are people's thoughts about that? Tracy?
Yeah, and we have at Joint Services had kind of talked about that, about Jamie coming to give us presentations on a more regular basis. So then we get the information and then it's distributed to those that aren't. So we can get updates just through email like that, through sharing of our minutes from Joint Services.
Ellen?
See, the only thing with NRTA is that every municipality has representation on there currently, mostly councillors. There's one CAO, and this way you have input on the board, and otherwise you just get a... Is there feedback? So you don't have any input, you just get a monthly or whatever, a bi-monthly report, but you won't have any influence at all, and currently we do.
How much money do we give to NRTA?
Give them any directly, it comes through Joint Services.
So Joint Services gives them money and we give Joint Services money. So how much actually comes from Joint Services to NRTA?
There's the 20,000 for sure goes to NRTA.
And the 22,500, which would be half our part. The 20,000 is for admin, I believe. And the 22,500 is for the Experience Development Fund. And I am a councillor from Brooks, a councillor from the County of Meal, and one person at large is on this subcommittee, which I've been on for close, I think around 7 years. And we decide, all the applications come in, and then we decide if they get money, how much they get, and that goes through a subcommittee. And there's always one councillor from the city and one councillor from the county. Did I say county? And Brooks.
Is that John Petrie right now that's on that board? Marie?
So last comment. So again, I think we're doubling up. We're just having too many council involvement at different points. And we've talked about tourism before, where it should be industry driven. You need people that are directly involved in tourism to run an organization like that. You don't need councillors on there. They're not experts in tourism at all. To me, it doesn't make any sense to have elected officials on a tourism board.
Wayne?
If we're giving out county money, we have to have an elected official on there, and 22,000. But joint services, no. They've got their mandate, and it's different from the mandate of NRTA.
But when the money is distributed through joint services, the county, we have our budget that the county and the city both give money to joint services. That money then from joint services, so it's directed through joint services.
Maybe we should have a discussion on what joint services that they're doing and what is in their mandate. No, just what exactly do you do? Like from day, what subjects do you cover under joint services?
Oh, wide variety. You get the agenda, or you get the minutes every month from them. There's usually RPAP involvement, which is the Rural Health Professionals Association. There's reports from the EID and the school boards quarterly, I think that is, quarterly. What else on a regular basis, you guys?
Well, we have the IMDP meetings when necessary. We've been doing most of those through email lately, but it's still a part of their function. We also have the economic development report that is at every meeting, so that's monthly. We approve the budget that's set out and for all the tasks and events that they're promoting, like the Blade Sign program that's out in the region. There's the New Grow program that they did. It was like Shark's Tank, where people came and presented their business ideas, and we approved the budget for that. So it's a lot of promotion in the region on different stuff. And then, we're involved with the rural position and retention, and aiding businesses in retention and assistance with like their marketing. So that's about
It's a wide variety of things, actually. I was just trying to think of what's on all the time, and you've hit a lot of them, Tracy. And we don't meet unless there's something to talk about Wayne specifically. That's a fairly big budget item. Maybe it needs to be a broader discussion. If we're looking at removing some of our committees, maybe that will impact some of the city committees as well, then, and the way NRTA is made up, or the city's already pulled out of PEP, haven't they? Canadian Badlands, I'm not so sure about what they're doing there. But there's definite overlap at our meetings with economic development and NRTA. They're enmeshed together on what's happening, what's being reported. I think, sometimes we end up on committees because our communities don't want to spend the time themselves, community reps perhaps, but we can add this to the agenda. We have a meeting next Tuesday, the Joint Services meeting, and just see if they looked at any of this overlap. Same with Canadian Badlands, find out what they're up to with that. Yeah, Rural Crime Watch. Yeah, all of those perhaps. Tracy, Lionel, with that, just get other communities feedback on what they see the purpose of. I'm asking if that would be an appropriate item for joint services to ask the question, are some of our committees that we both sit on becoming different levels of the same discussion? Just because it would be good to minimize. I mean, some of joint services is because Duchess and Rosemary and Bazano are also part of that. So it's the one meeting that we see somebody from the other municipalities, but they're not putting money into it. So that doesn't mean much. They all are there, which is a good thing. Lionel and Kelly?
But I do think that there's value in having that communication with the other communities in the district and within the region. I mean, it's if you sit in your own little silo and never talk to anybody, that creates problems. So I do believe that communication is important.
Yeah, I'll get that added to the joint services agenda. So NRTA, CBL, PEP will mention her. What's happening? So Wayne, you're with PEP while we're talking about CBL. What's going on with PEP these days?
PEP has got a new manager or CEO or whatever you want to, and I think PEP is going to start going places, and I think we should remain with it. I agree with Brian, maybe a lot of those meetings could be done by life size or Zoom or whatever it is. Don't think we have to travel all the time, but it's not a huge district. But that's just something, I think there's possibilities with it.
Those meetings get moved around anyhow too. Yeah. Clarence.
Well, we spent the last year and a half doing things by Zoom, and the biggest thing I missed is the interaction with the people. And I think some of the biggest values of some of these committees is interaction with the people. And I think, like Lionel just said, you get into your silos and then you start making wrong decisions. So I don't think we should overlook the value that there is with meeting folks from different counties and different jurisdictions, different cities, towns, and that sort. And I don't know about the Bow River Basin, but it's probably one of the few places that we actually meet folks from Calgary, which is at Goliath sitting up the stream from us in the Bow River. And I don't know if they have elected officials or staff or whatever, but it's just another way of them knowing where the county is, and for us to talk to someone who has perhaps some influence in the city and just getting that interaction there, or someone who can actually point you in the right direction when you have to do that. And I don't think you can't really put a value to that, but it's there. And I think we shouldn't forget about it.
I don't disagree, Clarence, with that. And I think we're going to keep in touch with the Bow River and council of the day can decide. Tracy?
Like, I think when I look at this exercise is an exercise in reducing duplicacy. Also, we're looking at ways to reduce costs. And I don't just, like, I agree with you, there's a connection there, but I also think we need to look at it, when is it appropriate to eliminate travel and when isn't? You know, like, sometimes sometimes joint services is very short. The meeting is, you know, half an hour. Well, depending on, like, where you live, it takes you longer to drive there. And, you know, so then, okay, would that be an instance where that's better use of time just to log in by Zoom, right? So I think there's, you know, we want to look at ways to save money, but also efficiency and time for counselors too. Like, what's the best use of their time? So that's where I'm looking at this. And I think, like, you know, and I agree with Anne-Marie, the Real Crime Watch, or Real Crime Watch, the Safe Communities, we get those reports anyways. You know, I think we don't contribute money to it. I don't think it's necessarily needs an elected official on those committees. You know, they take volunteers too, so there's still that opportunity. If somebody wants to, they can volunteer on those committees to stay involved, right?
The other thing is, a lot of people, when you mention council, says, well, I know there's a couple council meetings a month, but what about all those committees that you're expected to sit on? So I think that's why we were doing this ahead of the election, to see if there's anything we can do. Anyhow, let's just keep quickly going through these. I've got a list to take to joint services along with this information. The CAO Performance Evaluation Committee, as Ariana points out, states that a council must provide that CAO with an annual written performance, but it doesn't state that a committee has to be established to do that. And that's an internal decision, I think, of a council to decide. Having been on that committee forever, it might be good just to have 3 people that rotate. I guess it's a year-by-year thing, so it does have to change, but ours was Reeve, Deputy Reeve. Maybe it shouldn't be so prescriptive. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I agree. This committee doesn't have to be here. It's a requirement to do the evaluation. So when that time of year comes around, then you decide who wants to be on that committee.
How you're going to do it. Yeah. It looks impressive on paper to have 25 committees under your name, but if one of them never meets or one only meets once a year, it really sort of crazy. And there's the Crime Stoppers board. Crime Stoppers, is that combined with something else right now? QB? Rural Crime Watch and Crime Stoppers, but they're 2 different organizations? Not really sure. Yeah, we'll talk about that one for joint services again. Foothills Little Bow, 10 councillors, and as Ariana wisely pointed out, I mean, that's your voting power, I guess, because County Newell has always had the massive voting power there, obviously, with our one and only 10 council group. And we've all at times not attended, because we know if there's 10 people attending, they're going to bring back the word. And it's only elected officials that can vote. So grievance committee, that was one that we haven't heard much about. That might be something that someone like Mark would be able to fill us in on better, Ariana, and he'll be coming here. It might be something that has to be in place because of the union, possibly.
And maybe I read it completely wrong, but when I read that, I thought, well, we as council only have to look after Matt. That's where our employer-employee relationship stops. So is it even right to have councillors on this committee?
In my mind, it tied in with negotiations. That's why, because that is a committee of council, right? So, Mark, we're just looking at committees and how we might get rid of committees or change committees. In 1996, grievance committee was made up of the Reeve, Deputy Reeve, Municipal Committee Chairman, of which there isn't one anymore, another designated councillor, and the administrator or assistant administrator. Is that a CUPE thing?
So grievance committee is really for anything that comes about from the employees to the employer from the union. And there are a series of steps in the grievance process with that, where things would first come to the manager level for resolution. If they don't get resolved there, it gets escalated to myself, the CAO, ultimately this committee that you're referring to. And if it can't be resolved at that, then it goes through an arbitration process that is brought in parties from outside that both would pay for, and decision would be made. I think you'd see some more of that. Not saying it's not possible here, but you probably see or hear more of that in the urban areas with the cities and stuff that have much larger unions than ourselves. But it is a typical standard thing that is built into all union contracts. So,
and the grievance committee design is up to the council or up to the CUPE contract?
It should be defined in here as to who the members are.
Like in our minutes, it said Reeve or Deputy Municipal Committee Chairman.
Yeah, and we would have pulled that out of here.
So at a minimum, that needs to be revised because we don't have a municipal committee chairman anymore. So maybe you can have a look at that, Mark, and bring it back to us, or let Ariana know what the scoop is on that one.
Sure.
That would be good. Joint Services Committee, the history is there. Mayors and Reeves Association of Southeast Alberta meets spasmodically, especially since the chair changed. Thought I was bad. The new guy's worse. I tried for 4 times a year. Can't blame COVID on everything. And the Newell 911 dispatch. Brian, what's with that one?
And I guess that we meet so infrequently now that I'm not sure it can't be done under some other avenue too. I want you to talk about that at Joint Services too.
Oh, okay.
Because really it's 5 municipalities, and we've had times, but I mean I've stated it in a previous conversation about them. We have such great staff there that if there's a problem, they take care of it. Like I'm not a problem solver. I'm a budget guy. That's our role there. And when we were doing AFRAX radios, well, Stuart and Kevin, they came with all the information and, you know, basically you follow their leadership because it was sound, it was valid, it made sense, and find the money and get it done. And so I don't know, it's like now we're meeting, I think we met 3 or 4 times last year. And I mean, we send out an email, I'm the chair, and if there's nothing on the agenda, I request whether anything else is out there. And if there isn't anything on there that needs to be pertinent, I just postpone the meeting. So we haven't had a meeting since March, I think. And that was just to, you know, do the budget and approve all the bills. We do everything online now, like I okay the bill payment. And so it's really a committee that I think can be done through another conduit. Although they like it.
So there's other councillors from Dutchess and
Yeah.
Rosemary there?
There's one from each municipality.
And there's requisition coming from?
Yeah.
From each?
It's per capita requisition. Yeah. But I threw it out to them, and it was, at first it was sort of split as far as whether we should continue or not, and then we threw it back to the staff, and the staff said, well, if I had to go to the city and the county to, like, for the AFRAX or do my presentations, then that would actually be more work for me. So neither the city nor does the city have a rep there too? Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then the two.
It's John Nesbitt right now.
Okay. So just sort of see what people think of joint services.
Again, I think that could be a function. I mean, I don't want to thrust more on joint services, but you know, it's one of those things that, like I said, beyond budget, and I really don't think it's sort of like ASB was when we first got on council. I mean, we dedicated half a day to ASB once a month. Well, now Todd comes in every meeting and maybe spends 15, 20 minutes at the most, an hour with us, and it's done. And it's actually better because, and I just think that there is an opportunity. I'd like you to have that discussion as far as 911. I think that they need to be, the staff needs to be involved in being able to get the communication out, but I think there's redundancy there. It's redundancy. And maybe the solution at joint services is to have the Reeve and maybe one of the groups, one of the councillors that represents the area around for county council there, and then have the other person as a floater. Every month that you guys meet, maybe somebody else comes in, just so there's more. Like, I get the sense that it's almost like, well, some people around the table here think that joint services, this is almighty power, and it's not. I mean, I've been on joint services, but I think it is interesting that if you want to witness that, you should be able to have the opportunity to go. And I know you're not prevented. I just think that if you had that, it might be better to rotate one of the 3 people that sit there from a county council through there.
Good suggestion. So Newell Recycling, this one made me laugh when I read it. You had to be here in 2004 and then 2007, 8. The way that our compensation committee came to be was because we had councillors who just said, I'm going to that meeting and I will be paid for it. And this was one. So over the years, yeah, it's funny. So they obviously did fine without us before that, but maybe that's around the time they became I don't know. Lionel, you're on the Newell Regional Landfill, and this one is just a committee of that. No, it isn't. It's separate, isn't it?
It is separate, yes.
And are there other members on it from other councils?
Bill Prentice is on it, myself, and that's it.
And the rest are from the community?
Yes, that's correct.
So that they could carry on with community people then?
They could, yes, yeah,
Yeah. Like, is that what Tom McPhail's on from Bassano?
yes.
Okay. Okay. What do you think about that suggestion then, Lionel?
Well, the only thing with that is that I've found that the counselors at least have been dependable. So without some of that, you know, the committee would many times not have quorum. So at least we do show up.
And so counselors are getting paid, but the volunteers wouldn't be, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And that could be a reason, isn't it? You know? Anne-Marie?
Well, and you have to keep in mind too that, and this is a good example, you know, some committees would not survive if it wasn't for counselors being on there. So do you continue sending counselors, or do you say, well, if it's not viable, then let it go?
Well, if that board dries up, then the whole recycle depot folds. Now, is that what you want? I don't know. There's a price to keep it open too. And that's a pretty cheap price. That really doesn't cost much. We meet once a month.
After October.
Well, I really don't care after October, but I do believe that it has some value, and so, in my opinion, it's not a bad thing to have a counselor on it. Doesn't have to be me.
Maybe we should be putting out a call for more volunteers than we usually do for some of those boards. Have trouble filling those too. Brian?
Well, I agree somewhat with you, Lionel. The problem with recycling is it fits under the solid waste. They're funded, they are alive because of solid waste. I don't believe the board would fail. There's too many passionate people on that board that would, if they had to pay to be on the board, they'd probably still be there.
We've put the call out many times for people to join the board.
I just
And
think
had
that
very little success.
I think that if it went away, you'd have an uproar. It's like when they stopped taking plastic. Oh my gosh, the world was coming to an end. And that's the nature of our people don't care until it's necessary, and then you'll get an upswell of support. So I'm not against being on it, anybody being on it, but ultimately it does fit under the umbrella of regional waste. And that's why we've always had the person that that sits on regional waste sit on that board too, and that it makes a lot of sense. So, but it's the one won't function without the other.
But that board, the members at large, I think they are passionate about it, but there's so few of them. That's the problem.
Lionel, do they come from around the communities, like different communities?
Well, Tom McPhail's from Bassano. No, mostly just Brooks.
County people, burn their garbage. Well, do you have a meeting soon with Newell Recycling?
Yes, we will have one. No, we won't, because we canceled the one in July. So not till August. And it is the second Tuesday in August.
Be interesting conversation, Lionel, perhaps, to, if you don't mind carrying it there just for the heck of it.
I'll certainly bring it up. And like I say, I know I wouldn't stay on as a citizen at large after my term here, but it's been interesting, and I think it does have some value. we don't really want to see it fold up. It is we're very fortunate at the landfill that we were able to subsidize it. Otherwise, it would have failed by now and would have been gone.
Right. Well, for a one-year term, the appointment was, they've done well. Yes. See what the discussion is, Lila. I'd be curious. And we talked about NRTA and Palliser, Red Deer River Municipal Users Group, and the Red Deer Watershed Alliance, Anne Marie. I know they're different organizations.
They are different organizations, and after listening to the Bow River Basin conversation, I'm thinking that we don't need to be on either of these. They're very interesting. I learned lots, but as far as influence on government, but also like the Municipal Users Group is all the municipalities along the Red Deer River that use it for water for their communities, which we don't. We're towards the end. We're maybe concerned about the quality of the water as it comes through our area. But as far as using the water, I don't think we need to be on here.
And that's both of them. Because the other one is, it's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, the Municipal Users Group is the municipalities along the Red Deer River, and the Alliance is more an advocate education group.
And again, not, oh, I see, if you're a member, you get a vote at their annual general meeting. Yeah. But again, their members are representatives from a wide array. Yeah. So there are municipalities there, but they don't all belong. Okay? So not a compulsory type of organization. Rural Crime Watch, we've talked about. Oh, Mark?
Yeah, if I may, just on that Red Deer Rivershed, we do have some water users that pull off the Red Deer River, not for domestic purposes, but for irrigation purposes. So if that was ever something, council should keep that in mind. I think there are a few of them that have pumps in the river, do they not?
The only water license for irrigation that I know of is the Hutterite Colony, and they don't use it.
Oh, okay.
They're no longer pumping.
That was the biggest one I was thinking of, but I don't know if there's anybody else along the south border there that does.
Not that I'm aware of either, Mark. Crime Watch, Safe Communities. SEWA, well, I think we better keep somebody there for a while, seeing as they're looking at our location as a possibility. That wouldn't. Well, Ariana's pointed out that we're not a member, we're just represented through regional solid waste, so we don't even belong.
Well, I can't hear you.
2013, there was a motion permitting councillor attendance at SEWA meetings as a function of council. But is there a membership requirement? Like you say, Ariana, that we're represented through New Regional Solid Waste. Do we get a vote there?
Yes. We get it through
Raymond.
That's right. Through the regional solid waste, not the county annual.
So is there a membership cost?
It's paid for by New Regional.
Wow, we've been riding on their coat. Well, they haven't asked for, do they ever ask us for money or anything?
Don't think so.
Okay,
New Regional's paid for it all along.
interesting. And Veterans Memorial Highway, that's a done one, you're thinking?
Yeah, there's very little interest left. And they went, Molly, I think you were on it when they established it?
No, I'm not that, not long,
It's that old?
long
I
in
didn't
the
realize.
tooth.
Because it was a safety association at one time, and they were doing good work. And they have done some great work. But right now, maybe it'll change with new membership from new members. But right now, they're worried about putting a pamphlet together. And and then when we do have meetings, quite often, we can't even make quorum. So I would say, drop it.
So in 1999, it was a Route 36 Development Safety Association.
Yeah, and it did good work, and it pushed the government and did some good reports, but you bring that up and they don't seem to have an interest to do that anymore. And we had one meeting last year. I think we've had one this year, and they're not interested, so I'd say no.
When I was on it, the whole goal was to get everybody represented along the route to try and work on turnouts more than anything for safety. Tabor is gone? Because Tabor was very active. Yeah, with all those guys that got the punt election to go or two. Okay, that's the list. Anne-Marie?
Just a suggestion for Lionel when he has the conversation with recycling. SEWA and recycling maybe have to be subcommittees of the regional landfill rather than having show up here as 3 committees. We put you on SEWA because you're part of a regional landfill. We put you on recycling because you're part of a regional landfill. So instead of 3 committees, it should maybe be just 1. Regional landfill and 2 subcommittees.
It hasn't been too heavy duty. Too many meetings, like, done that way? No.
Well, you know, some of those meetings are not very difficult. You know, they're an evening meeting, take an hour, and especially this year because they've all been virtual. So that was quite easy. And some of that could continue in the future if we choose to make it easier. And it's not a large cost.
No, I think more of this was about time commitment as committees.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. So Matt and Ariana or Mark too, with your computer skills versus mine, for us to say it's great to have Zoom and these things going forward as an alternative to driving a couple of hours, is that a difficult thing that people will soon want to just forget about because they don't, IT doesn't want to be bothered with it? I know from our perspective here, I'm sure you would always, but for a small municipality, or like, how would that work? I'm just thinking, great, now, like today I thought, well, if I didn't want to drive in, I could just sign into life size, but it's not that simple, is it?
I think well, maybe Ariana's shaking her head over there, but I mean, with our in-camera today, it seemed to work all right. And that doesn't come without a cost for, the equipment that we've outfitted here, the software licensing. So there is a cost for that. But that's in this kind of situation where you're doing kind of a hybrid live and bringing somebody in. I think for a lot of them, Councillor ADJOURN talking about the Bow River, you can easily get on to Zoom, a Microsoft Team, pick your flavor, right? Whatever you want to be frustrated by, and a lot of those come for free, right? So this would be maybe a taller ask of smaller municipalities to have the equipment for the hybrid model, but I think just on your laptop with whatever application you choose is relatively straightforward. And everybody's trained now after a year and a half, right?
Ariana, do you have a comment? And then Kelly?
The technology, everybody's pretty comfortable now. There is a cost. Smaller municipalities might have different internet capabilities. The other thing is a lot of these aren't our committees, so the discussion is, like, it's very well and good and say, I've been appointed to this committee, I would prefer to meet with Zoom.
Yeah,
Are they going to accept that? You can't really dictate how they're going to deliver their meetings.
agreed. And that's why I thought it may very quickly fall off the map as being an option. So all this talk about, this is great going forward on a stormy day, I can just do this or do that, may not in fact be true, which is unfortunate really, because it finally forced us to use all of this technology, but it might not be that way. Mark?
Yeah, I just contribute from being logged in at the desktop today. If you were at home yourself, Reeve Douglas, logged in to oversee this meeting, right now you would have the full perspective of the room, not the individuals, and I'm not so sure that you would see anybody with their hand up or know who's questioning or wanting to speak next. It would almost be a hybrid, just observation and speaking, that everybody here would almost have to be logged in on life size at the same time so that you could get a clear view yourself to manage the meeting from home and get those questions and raised hands to be able to see it, because I just don't think you're going to see it around the room. And maybe that's something that IT would have to potentially look at, is if the public's participating, maybe they only see the room, but then you're not here. So then it's another screen on the screen that everybody has to look at. So it gets interesting.
Yeah. I think in attendance for something like certainly what Brian was saying, that makes sense. But yeah, Ariana and Kelly.
I just had something dumb to contribute where you could set it up like a TV studio where you'd be going camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, who would zoom in on whoever's speaking, but that might be a little overkill for a council meeting.
I'll be here, don't worry. Kelly.
So 2 things, just to remind you that Shortgrass has been doing this for years. We've saved a ton of money on mileage. I missed out on networking, so I would try to go to their meeting at least 6 times a year out of 12. But just to remind you, we have been utilizing this technology for many years. The other thing on the list.
From home, you did that, or
Yes.
did you have to go somewhere?
No, from home. Mhm. Yeah, it's just a pre-planned setup with the technologist at Shortgrass. They do, a long, thin table. There's no zoom in or anything like that, but it's clear. And anyway, the list to me was missing one, and I've always struggled with this one on timesheets, and that's Brooks Recreation Board. We have Division 5 and 10 Recreation Board, which I understand, but we have another one that shows up, I don't know how often, once a month. So that one's missing off this list, okay?
So that needs to be added. On the big list. This is just a... Okay. Thanks for...
So my question there is, what input or what influence do we have there to send 2 counselors to that committee?
Matt?
I just want to point out that as part of our ICF agreement with the City of Brooks, we required that there would be council representation on that board so that we have the door open to influence what happens there to some degree. So that is built into our ICF, and they have a bylaw that also allows for that membership from our council. So I think the wording in the ICF is that they won't change their bylaw on us. It'll preserve that for us.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and that it acts as like the board itself acts as a suggestion group. And then ultimately it goes back to city council for approval. But like we talk about fees and, you know, next meeting we're gonna do the approval for the funding through the ICF rec funding. So yeah, we have a little bit of a power, but mostly we make recommendations to go forward.
All right. Did you get a little bit of information out of that, Ariana, with more to come from joint services?
Yeah, if I could just go through, I'm understanding that I could forward the Bow River Basin Council information to all councillors instead of just Brian from now on. And then Joint Services is going to talk about Canadian Badlands, NRTA, Safe Communities, Rural Crime Watch, Crime Stoppers. Was there another one? Newell 911?
No, 911.
Newell 911? Any other ones?
Did you have both tourism groups?
Sorry, what?
Both tourism groups?
NRTA and Canadian Badlands? Yes. The Red Deer River ones, do you want to do the same thing as Bow River? Just forward the information to all of council and you can decide?
Sure.
Okay, and then the Veterans Memorials Safety Development, that's a no?
I think we're no going forward unless there's something changes, which may happen with change in election. I don't know. Okay. We will move on then. Foothills Little Bow Association meeting is September 17th, and we have until sometime in August to get in a resolution if we want. Checks for payment. I'm just going to go back to the assessment model changes. And there's really nothing new on that, but I wanted to just remind people of information that is online. And David Swan, who's the MLA, old Liberal MLA from a way back, has been part of this committee, as well as a few other guys. And they have something built that's called Alberta Liabilities Disclosure Association. They have worked very hard on to point out the great concern about how billions of dollars of liability remains in our communities because of wells that will never be cleaned up or will be abandoned. And they have a big list of, County of Newell is 4th on that list of liabilities. And Matt, what is our liability? About 3 billion, I think it is. Yeah. They are always wanting to, Cypress is number 1. Greenview, I think, is 2, and Yellowhead, I believe, was 3. They're always trying to get us to pay attention to this because it's a huge issue. And what they have done recently, and I think it was about last Friday or Friday before, that they made an announcement and they've got a big plan called the Big Cleanup. And it would be sort of a revolution in Alberta that would create another oil boom, in that it would be a whole pile of people hired to clean up what's left of oil and gas. It would provide many years of work and employment. And so it's just something that, in speaking to David Swan, I said, well, you know what, it isn't something that we have picked up on a lot because we've been more concerned about non-payment of taxes, and that has been our focus. and will continue to be. Their point is that it should not, the cleanup should not be being paid for by the public. These are companies that made the mess, and they should be cleaning it up. So that's what they're working on, and they, Matt was going to send some information to this group because they are concerned about the future and where the money will come from to fix all of this, which is a good concern. Although David Swan always was liberal and left-leaning, he's most annoyed with the federal government for simply giving out money for companies, reclamation companies, to get doing cleanup. He said that's ridiculous. Why should our taxpayer dollars be going to clean up stuff, that a mess that we did not leave behind? So just made me think of that when it was assessment model changes. It's all sort of tied in there. But Matt, I don't know if you had anything else.
Yeah, I just popped up their report. So they do have a website. Look, ALDP Coalition, so it's the Alberta Liabilities Disclosure Project, and the report they published there is called The Big Cleanup. The average estimated reclamation spending for our region is $2.7 billion to get the job done. Estimated wages paid of just over $894 million, and an estimated 12,433 job years of employment. So if we're looking for an economic development initiative, it's sitting right there. So that would be a great initiative to be advocating to our provincial masters for. And I know just last week, I think it was, received another email about the AER looking at minimum requirements for cleanup that they're looking to impose on companies. So that's a step in the right direction. But if we've got 12,000 years of employment ahead of us to get the job done, I think they need to start right away. Yeah.
Okay. Mark, did I cut you off? Did you have something to say on that QP committee? Okay, good. Checks for payment, thank you. Checks over $350,000. We need a motion to pay that check. Hubie will make that motion. Brian, all in favor? All in favor of Hubie's motion? Opposed? No, Hubie made it. All in favor, and as everybody was, so. And the payment register is next. Oh, sorry, Anne-Marie.
And it's not a big amount, but there's, under the S, 6 gun rentals, and it says garbage collection in Patricia. Are we starting to do that? Or is this the bin that's at the hotel?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is off the top of my head, but I can pull that and get back to you. I'm not connected to the network. I don't know if Todd's doing any tax recovery up there, but that's the only thing that kind of comes to mind. If tax recovery or ag services doing initial cleanup for the start of the year, but I'll dig in and get back to you on it. It won't be for the hotel. We wouldn't be paying the hotel's garbage bill. That's, yeah.
Any other questions on that? Ariana?
Apparently Emerson's watching. He said 6 gun rental is for the Patricia Fire Hall.
Emerson. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We are at payment register. Request for functions of council. I just wanted, after our couple of parades that we've been at, to mention that I think that people who are attending out of their community should be able to put in a request for their mileage and time. And I'm most specifically thinking of Tracy, who has done a wonderful job of having the truck delivered and then getting it out to Tilly and back and forth. And that was all stuff that I would have had to have been doing. So I'm very grateful. And she should be putting in a request for payment. And Brian showed up in Tilly. That's up to him if he wants to, but I'm thinking that anybody who goes the extra mile, I never charge for Bazzano. I call that my home parade I would be going to, because Jem only has one every 30 or 40 years. And so, yes. Brian.
Well, I agree with you. I won't take anything because I just showed up and gave candy and had a good breakfast. So it's, but yeah, Tracy did. She was the truck driver. She was the hauler. She did lots more than me. So all I did is bust open candy and make kids happy. So that's good.
Anyhow, I just wanted to get that for next month or whatever. Kelly, motion approved for.
I just think it was so easy because Mark and Terry and Ariana had everything organized and they delivered the truck and I just got to drive it around and it was great. I really appreciated their help for it too. So
I personally believe the presence is much more noticeable than the car parade where the dignitaries breeze by, and yeah, I really, it's great. And we might use the horses, ponies in Bazzano on August 14th possibly. So gonna figure it out closer to the time. So big shout out to Tracy, I appreciate that. Okay, Mark, your report. Oh, Kelly made the motion, right? So all in favor? Opposed, motion is carried for function of council outside of your community. All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, good afternoon. Council has had a report sent to them as part of the agenda, so I don't have any real highlights other than the department's busy. It's road grading season, it's create more dust season, it's finally rained for us, so there's less dust. Dust abatement program is done. Last year was an absolute remarkable year for our dust abatement program. That one set the absolute bar. We had our product, we had our crews, we had excellent weather, we were done within the 10 days, no hiccups, no failures, no nothing. I cannot say that about this year. We had supply issues, we had truck issues, we had weather issues, and kudos to the crew for getting it done in the time period that they did. We were a couple days beyond what council's target goal of 10 days is, but yeah, last year was the bar, and we know that that bar can be reached, and now we just have to continue to strive for that. The challenging thing with that is the things that are not under our control. Weather is not under our control. We do have contracts for supply of product and stuff. Things happen. So alternative plans, measures get put into place. It still takes time to coordinate that. Terry spent a lot of time on the phone making things happen. So kudos to him as well for making it. Yeah, that one I really wanted to point out to council because we felt it this year. We had the bar set in 2020 and 2021. We did not reach what we did in 2020. So it's nice to strive for the best and be there, but it doesn't always happen. So the team will be having a meeting and finding out what things we'd like to try to bring more in-house for better control, so that it is under our thumb if possible. And anything that we go to propose, we'll be looking at for budget or future budgets as we see them coming about. But that program is done. The gravel program, I just did a high summary of that as to what percent is complete in each of the 8 respective operating areas. This is not electoral areas, operating areas, the same areas that your grader operators now work in. So it is coming along quite well. Maintenance operators, 25 work orders completed for the month. Lots of those 15 sign work orders. Those things take those staff all across the region, so a lot of that time is spent driving to get to the job, to get the job done. Also coordinating Alberta One Call locates before the job can be done, because you got to put the lath in the ground so the locator knows where they're locating, following their processes and procedures. So time investment in rural Alberta to get things done is way different than that in urban centers, because we spend a lot of time on the road. We continue working on the snow storage sites and the salt management plan with our consultants. A draft has been received, reviewed by myself and Terry. We're hoping to get comments back to them here shortly so that we can have that in place for this upcoming winter season. Don't forget, you're now past the halfway mark. We're almost past the halfway mark towards getting to Christmas again, so start shopping for your spouses. What else we got here? Lots of construction projects kicking off now that dust abatement is done. Terry likes to kind of sit on some of these things until dust abatement's done, because it is a very intensive 2 weeks for everybody on the team. And so construction crews are now starting to go at the work, and that's been highlighted in the report. One Tree Road Overlay Project, they've got started. They're having troubles getting going in the morning because of what the weather looks like. Is it going to rain? So then they kind of delay their start. If it has rained, it all just kind of slows things. So hopefully with some of the rain forecast now, it gets it out of the system, and then they can get on to paving and getting it done. But it's going not too bad anyway. Line painters, sometime this month they're going to be showing up again. That's going to be based on weather. Can't paint in the rain because it just wash off. So we want to make sure we get it done right the first time. And Headgates property, CAO Fensky and I drove that just on Monday or Tuesday morning, I guess it was. And things are coming along quite well there. Fortis's contractor is still on site, relocating power poles, running new services to the properties and stuff. And you already dealt with some of Headgates today with land use amendment and stuff. So that project is coming along fine. Hopefully in that August period, we're going to see a lot of things wrapped up and see the closure of that project. So asset management plans continue to be worked on. That's an intensive project. Also working with the project's assistant on that public education campaign with the number of topics and variety of topics that we can throw out there to the public to keep them informed. And last thing that's attached to the report is the permit activity report. I did have a couple new numbers just come in today for June, but I didn't add them to it. So we are 25% ahead in our permits from previous year. But don't forget, 2020 was an excessively slow year when COVID hit in the March period. And I'm hoping that now that July 1st has come and gone and the province has removed the restrictions, that we'll see productivity on field work pick up and more people in the field employed and permits driven up as a part of that. So any questions of council, I'd be happy to answer.
Mark, can you, fleet services was mentioned in your report. Can you tell me about the Bazzano agreement? Do we go in there and enforce their bylaws, or is it complaint driven within that agreement as well? I understand it's a little bit different in Bazzano. Is that correct or wrong?
So we have agreements with the town of Bazzano, villages of Rosemary and Dutchess, Eastern Irrigation District. We also formerly had one with the village of Tilly before it dissolved. And still trying to follow up with Hazard to find out whether they really need us anymore or not. The way that those agreements are written is that we will enforce their local bylaws. We also have our provincial appointments our officers do directly as to what they can enforce, because there are 3-digit highways that run through some of those municipalities. But then there's always the liquor, the gaming, the alcohol and stuff. There's animal control acts and things that they have for designations as well. The process we've used is they get their assignment direct from the CAO or somebody from administration when they get to the community. That is the work that they are to prioritize and work on for their shift that they have scheduled, and John is the one that sets the shifts, and they carry out, and then they report back to the office when they're done their shift as to what was accomplished. The next time they come into the community, if there was something on that previous list that wasn't completed, it may be on the list, or maybe it's fallen off the list and there's a new list of priorities. And with that, I can say that the town of Bazzano, through their, I think it's called the Beautify Bazzano Initiative, they have a very hard push on unsightly premises cleanup. That's part of their whole Beautify Bazzano. And it does take a lot of hours with unsightlies, and that is the primary focus, so.
Other questions for Mark? If not, we need a motion to accept municipal reports. Tracy will move. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And that takes us to the Rural Water Project Phase 2 funding. And Matt.
All right, so you've all had a few days to pin down your funding strategy. So me and Mark are just here to take notes, and you tell us how this is going to roll out. So we did talk about Phase 2 of the water project on Monday. We had a range of suggestions for connection fees, and I think the 2 items we want to determine today is, if we can, I mean, I guess we don't have to, but if we can, pin down what a connection fee would look like, and whether we want to apply to the MSI capital grant program to fund the project. So when we look at the connection fees, we had, spitballed 1,200. I think there was a high of 7,700 thrown out during our meeting, and that's in line with the current connection charge. The $1,200 is pretty much equivalent to the 1,000 for the first round, inflated to today's dollars. So really, depending on council's philosophy, what you want the users to be on the hook for, we want to pin that down. We had talked about, in the RFD, I point out it might be worth providing a lower amount as an incentive to get sign up. I think lesson learned last time around this was when you started high, you had to go low to get the interest. So maybe we start low and let people know when it's going to go back to the high rate to incentivize the sign up. There was some comments in here as well about payment plans. So if you do choose to go higher, we did provide an opportunity for some users who wanted to spread that $7,700 out over 5 years. We took the $1,000 deposit, and then I think they also had to pay that $700 for the license, the water license. But we took the 1,000 and then financed 6,000 over 5 years at 5%. So I put that in here for you to kick around. And then the last item here is also, we want to go, when we do roll out the sign up registration process, as much certainty for people as possible, right? So your cost will be X. We will start the project when MSI grant funding is approved, MSI grant cash is in our bank account. There's some different ways we could approach it. And when 70% of the people in your registration area have registered. And I just threw out 70%. Maybe you want it to be 50%, but I think you need enough of a critical mass to mobilize and design the project. So I can't recall, I wasn't entirely here when all the planning was done for the first phase of the project. I'll defer to Mark on that, whether you had a sign-up threshold before moving into an area, but that's what I've got in front of you. In terms of the MSI, just to recap from Monday, we can commit $26 million of MSI to projects. We've currently got 4.6 million that we could apply for, and they'd send us that cash. That would actually, when you look at some of the different costs that MPE provided in their study, that will get a lot of areas taken care of just right there with that 4.6 million. So we could be looking at moving realistically in 2022 if we get a registration process up and running through the fall, through the winter. If the level of interest is there, we do have money to start. Now, I pointed out the risk of allocating, future MSI amount and being in the same situation that we just got out of with phase one. You could backstop that with borrowing and allocating some of your restricted surplus funds to backstop that while you wait for the cash to come in. So I know it's a lot to kick around, but we've got good minds around the table, and Mark's taking notes.
No, the live recording's taking notes.
I'm going to go with 1,500. It's slightly more than last time, which is, we can say is kind of the penalty for not doing it the first time. And it's not major, but that's the amount I think strikes a good balance. As far as MSI funding, I have no problem with that. As far as trying to figure out all the other things, I think it'll be very easy for council because we're going to leave it to staff to figure out. Because we can't decide on those things here today.
What are we going to do with subdivisions? We talked a little bit about how, for instance, Kinbrook Island, if you move in there and you have 5 people that still are not hooked up and only 3 of them will take it, what are we going to do there? And you brought up Rattleback North Headgates this morning. Is there something that we need to do with subdivisions?
So I'll go to Kinbrook. So some people got the water, some didn't, and so the lines are very available.
That's correct.
So would additional lines be needed for?
Maybe not in Kinbrook, but there might be additional lines in other areas, because if we didn't have to run to the end of a subdivision because everybody at the end of it didn't
want it, yeah. Then
we wouldn't have extended, right?
Okay. So let's say, just while I'm thinking of subdivisions, let's say I already have water and I want to do a subdivision and get the water. That would be a $7,700 charge now?
Yeah, current connection fee is the $7,700 that we would charge, and you'd also be on the hook for if the line isn't quite at your property line, you'd have to pay for getting it there currently.
That's today.
Yeah.
So if we open this up, say tomorrow, would it be the same for tomorrow?
Well, hopefully we'll leave this meeting with a new connection charge for phase 2. And we will take care of the construction costs of getting the line to your property. You'll still be on the hook for tying into that, so taking it from the property line in. And there are costs associated with that, but not to the same extent of, you know, spending, I think some of the quotes that Jeff has provided people is $30,000 to get it from where the line is up to the property line, and then additional into your property.
So it would still be the same. So if, I'm just making this up, say the line ends at my house, I have water, and over in the other corner of my quarter that has a pivot on it, I want to build a house. So I would be responsible for the line, or I can get in on this program now at, say, $1,500.
So right now, depending the size of line that was ran to your property, if you were at the end of the line, it may not be capable of being extended because there's no other users beyond it. So you might have to start way, way back further down the line where there's more capacity and pull another line off of it. For this, say you could extend it, you're going to be on the hook from extending from yours all the way up to where the new yard site is, because not all yard sites are subdivided off with clear property lines. For the curb stop to be installed, the $7,700, and you're also going to have to pay your contractor to run it into your cistern on that new property. That's a matter of how council would like to look at it, I guess, because when we did the first round, if you applied for a second unit, you did not get the $1,000 a second time. You paid a full $7,000 for that, plus the future water license of $700. Those would be the details that we would be looking for council to confirm again for us. Just like when we did this before, we set it up that out of any of the 1 areas, whichever got to a 60% registration first is where we would look at releasing the contract first. And so that was kind of that incentive that if you wanted as soon as possible, you better get registrations in your area and get your neighbors on board, right? Otherwise, you might be a year or 2 or 3 down the road before you're going to see it.
That worked. Well, sort of. We still had to build out.
Yeah, it works to an extent. It encouraged some to get the registrations in. You know, there were some things that happened along the way too, that homes exchange hands. And some of those people that sold at the right timing canceled their registration and the new buyer didn't know it. But that's not really our fault. That should have been a civil thing that potentially got brought up, because I know I wouldn't be happy if I was buying and knew that a registration was paid, that it got yanked out. Like $1,000, man, that's a tough deal breaker on that, right? But we got new people in the communities again. We got new homes that have been built. We got lots of different situations out there. So how to incentivize it? And we now have to remember that we have large pockets where people are hooked up, and so it's individuals in between all of that now that did not choose to be part of the first phase. So we had the estimates from the engineers that Jeff presented last council meeting. Where that winds up, we really don't know, because my belief is there's going to be a little bit more mobilization and demobilization of equipment, because it's not just going to keep moving itself down the road. It's going to leapfrog itself down the road. It's going to have to be put on trailers and moved distances to make it happen. and how some of these guys see work today, being we're just coming out of COVID and stuff, I don't know what those tenders would really look like, because I know some of those underground guys have stayed busy because they're outdoor field workers and they've been able to keep their people busy that way.
Okay, back to the subdivision question. So you were saying that it should be forced, or the question is, what about what happened in Kinbrook? So I'm saying that, and so if there's a line there now, these people would pay their money and be in, and you guys are saying it should be forced. Get it now or never. But we can't do that because who knows what never means. How things change. Yeah.
I certainly think it should be, because we have to disrupt so many things in a lot of those subdivisions. I know in Johnson's Estates, it was a horrible mess. You know, it turned into a soup bowl there when you were trying to install them, and to go back in and dig that all up again, that's going to be a disaster, very difficult to do. So yes, I do believe that everybody should have to be put on. Kinbrook Island, the same thing. We got to dig the road up. That was ridiculous to do that again.
Well, that has the possibilities to be controversial. Matt, and waiting.
I think these are great discussion points, and I think, well, I'm an optimist about the rural water, having experienced the benefits of not having to hop into a 3-ton truck at -30 and fight with a frozen valve. You know, the heavy hand, there might be a time for it, but I don't think it's quite yet. We might just be surprised by everybody who signs up for it. So I think, you know, as a course of action, you open the door and watch everybody flood through and sign up, and you might not have to consider forcing anybody, because there's value in the service. We know there's good value in the rural water project.
That's optimistic. I like it, that approach, though, because we're in control all the way along. Wayne and then Clarence.
Molly, you mentioned something about people were allowed to sign up their first one for 1,000. After that, it was 7,700. I have a neighbor. He signed up for the 1,000. He's got his water system, but his son has set up another yard. But I believe the title of that is still in this guy's name. This project, would it be 1,500 that he gets to charge? He charged, or would he have to pay the 7,700? Or anybody who applies, no matter how many titles they've got, will be getting in under the 1,500. It's a question.
I think that's something that we can work out, as Matt said, and I don't know if there's a, what I heard was it would be 7,700. Yeah, I don't, my question, I guess, could be more straightforward. If I've already had taken advantage of it at $1,000 and used it, is that it for me? The rest, anything else I get after that is 7,700.
Yeah, and I think the discussion that took place, and this is going back many years, and Jeff is way more familiar than this than me, but he's definitely not anywhere close to us right now. The reason why the second unit wasn't at the reduced rate was to reduce the amount of speculation. Because if you owned a quarter section land, you'd want to put a service on every dry corner possible, but maybe they would never develop. And the county would have been committing a bunch of MSI dollars for something that never happened. And then those lines sit with stagnant water in them, because we'd have to put a flush point on each end of them to make sure that something never happened with the system, that it somehow got sucked backwards and distributed further down the line. So I think we're still going to have to work out some of that side of the detail, because I know that was heavily discussed around council's table before, that we could end up with a service on every dry corner. And that's not the objective.
Current subdivision and, yeah, with a
Yeah.
building on it, seems to me. A usable building? No? Okay. Yes. Clarence?
Well, I was not totally sure, but I was pretty darn sure we only paid $1,000 on 3 different properties that were on different titles with the same names, so I'm not sure that, no? Yeah, with houses on it, yes, yep. Because we had places for our hired men, we had, a company that's had different partners.
And that was allowed.
Yeah.
It was if it was an empty thing that you might build a
Right.
house on and sell later on, speculation.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that wasn't originally why you had your hand up for it, I don't think.
It was, I just, if you have separate titles, one could be a rental. And I also don't see a whole lot of difference between subdivisions and farmers that live half a mile apart or 2 miles apart, or whatever the case may be. I think we got to treat everybody different. We start helping one and not the other, I think we're in big trouble. And I'm not looking forward to it.
Right.
Well, I think you echoed my thoughts. So what's the objective? The objective is to build out the system. So let's not put as many obstacles in the way as we can to do this. I think, Matt, you made an excellent comment. I mean, if we haven't sold the system on the service that it provided up to this point, then people aren't going to, they'll resist it, okay? And if they're doing that, well, I'll put them in a different category because it makes no sense to me. This has been a Cadillac system as far as I'm concerned, as far as what it delivers, and people that see the value of that have been chomping at the bit because that's why Jeff has to do quotes every month. So let's make it as simple as possible. I would like as much to say mandatory sign up, but I'm not going to go there. I think it has to be voluntary. I think you will get a big push from people that will see the value, that have recognized that, holy crap, I missed the opportunity however many years ago we did this, and they'll be there. And if they're not there, you know what? You can't change that. And that's just the way it is. So I agree with Clarence's suggestion of $1,500 a hookup. And if you've taken advantage of the situation in the past, and and you're farming or your domestic situation has changed, but it's not exclusively farmers. Maybe you have people that are in your life that live on a subdivision in a different area, but you can help them out, or they can help themselves out. If it's a farmer and they have family that's come into the operation and they can take advantage of this by they've built a new house on a corner or a quarter or whatever, and you're taking advantage of it a second time, well, good on you. How is that any different than somebody that didn't take advantage of it but now chooses to? We want to build this system so that we can take advantage of the resource that we have here, which is Newell Regional Services Corporation and the product they deliver. Let's try to make it as accessible and as simple as possible. It's not going to be simple when it's all rolled out, but let's start out with trying to control the parameters as much as possible to keep it simple.
So what I've heard so far is $1,500, $7,700 for the other option, and not a mandatory thing, just voluntary. Put in your $1,500 if you're interested, and then we see how that plays out given a certain length of time. Oh, I don't know that. Yeah. Matt?
Yeah, so I did put in the RFD as well that a lot of these details or things we're thinking about today, we'll have the opportunity to think about all those things again. What we really wanted to pin down today is initiating the first steps of the project. So if we get the user's connection fee and the motion for applying for the MSI grant, we'll leave this meeting, apply to the MSI grant. We'll wait until we've got approval from MSI. So once we know we've got grant funding, we know what the user fee is, then we'll come back. Mark and Jeff will go through the archives of what we did the first time, the lessons learned. We'll prepare the program for registration, and we can kick all of these good ideas around again. But I think, you know, it's going to get, if my optimism is unfounded and everybody doesn't rush to sign up, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about.
I'm in favor of the 7,700. 20-some people paid that, right, in the meantime when the first phase was finished. And I don't think it's fair to them unless we want to refund them. So I'm in favor of 770 people, 7,700, I should say. And there is a possibility to have a 5-year or what have you with 5% interest to get that paid. I did a little digging, and other jurisdictions not so far away, they charge an average of $20,000. So I think $7,700 is a gift. Personally, I ran to the office to sign up at $7,700, and so I think it's too cheap, $1,500.
Memory's serving me a little bit better. The first water unit was $1,000 for the registration, giving you 300 gallons per day. If you were going to use 600 gallons a day, you had to pay the additional $7,000. So therefore, if you had a dry corner that you wanted to pay to have the service on, the service was going to be there. We collect a $40 base fee on the curb stop sitting on that property for eternity, unless you pay to have that service removed. I will bring it up because we did a little bit of research. 144 estimates have been prepared since 2013, since those projects have ended or contracts closed. 24 of them have proceeded, and there are 7 sitting in a pending state right now in 2021. They're waiting on council or administration, or however council wants to look at it. With that, from 2013 until today, we have one individual who has paid $29,150 for the highest service connection, and the lowest one, I think, is $10,200. So that is tying off the nearest point possible, running the main line to the yard site, having the curb stop installed, and I believe that includes the $7,700. So after the curb stop, we don't have costs because we don't take it to your cistern.
How many in the 8 years? 140?
144 estimates have been prepared. 24 individuals have proceeded on their own.
And 7 thinking about it.
7 today are thinking about it. I know 1 proceeded because they were making it a condition of the sale of their acreage. And so therefore they're proceeding with that right now. Yeah, so we said 24 proceeded, your high is 29, your low is 10,200. I would really have to venture guess that the average is about 15,000 based on, I didn't run an average out before I came to the meeting, but I would venture guess it's about $15,000 per. Those are the people that are within reason, because I know that Jeff has provided an estimate for over $120,000. because that is your outlying people that we identified in the discussion on Monday, as well as in the report from MP Engineering, that some of them just may not be worthy of consideration and pursuing due to the exorbitant cost that would be incurred.
Taken into consideration somewhat first time around. You know, I remember the ID saying, well, we're not going to put one in for our lease rider, for example, on Gem, because it's just out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, same in Patricia, yeah. So today then we've got to come up with a cost, and then the motion would also include the application to be put forward to MSI to fund it, to take that money. All right, so we've heard a variety of possibilities and thoughts. Kelly?
Good conversation and good comments made. I'm prepared to make a motion as recommended, option 1 in our RFP.
Yeah, you have to put in a number.
So that the connection fee charged to each property owner for rural water project phase 2 be $1,500 based on a 300-gallon per day trickle system unit. And that administration submit an application to MSI Capital Grant Program to fund the $15 million estimated cost of the project.
Thank you, Kelly. I was looking at options rather than the actual motion. Perfect. Absolutely. Other comments?
I'm just thinking about comparing to other municipalities, that we have to be really careful to bring up amounts of 20,000 like Councillor Unruh did, because we don't know if they actually have a trickle system, if they have a pressure system, and we really don't know what the other systems are compared to ours. So, you know, we have to be careful by saying another municipality has done it for this amount or that amount. Just kind of a thought.
Ellen?
I still think it's water to your doorstep. I'm not really interested how, but I would like to ask for a recorded vote on this one.
Any other discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? Oh, Wayne. Yeah, I heard. Lionel, we'll start over with you. State your division and yes.
Division 10 is in favor.
Division 5 in favor.
Div 8 in favor.
Div 6 in favor.
Div 3 in favor.
Div 1 in favor.
Div 6 in favor. Oh, yeah. Jeez. I've always wanted to be 6.
Division 2 in favor.
Division 4 in favor.
Division 7 opposed.
I know there's an easier way to do that, but I wouldn't have had to write all that down. Okay, so we'll wait and hear about the MSI capital grant, which is an interesting thought to hear what they say about it because of the new concept that's coming in, eh? Okay, so we'll be able to get some further info. We'll move on to, oh, this reminds me, yes. Copy of the court decision is there. Any comments anybody wants to make about that? If not, we have a motion that I will read. we need a motion that we pay the Schedule C, column 3 of the Alberta Rules of Court, AR 124 over 2010, costs requested by Alberta Council for the legal challenge of Bylaw 1998-20. Wayne? Wayne's made that motion. Comments? Okay, or questions? Brian and Kelly?
Just wondering if the amount is attached to that motion. I would like that to be attached.
Do we know for sure what it is? Is there a reason for that?
I just feel that the plaintiff pushed the county into this, and it's costing county ratepayers that money and more, because it's not even exhibited what our court costs are, and that needs to be identified for the public.
Yeah, so total cost, including GST, is $9,300.38.
Thank you. Further questions? Clarence, comments?
Are we sure that that will be accepted now? Are we finished with it at that, or is there still some, not totally sure if...
Yeah, my understanding from our council is that this will be the last.
Okay.
Kelly and Lionel.
Just clarification, Matt, I understood that our legal costs will be on top of that as well.
That's correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that there is additional costs as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lionel?
That's what I was going to talk about, is the legal costs, and I think the estimate should be identified so that the public is aware of it.
When we know.
We know fairly close, because he gave us a very close estimate of 13,000.
Was an estimate. Wasn't only.
Yeah, just an estimate from a real quick, the computer thing. I bet his accountants are going to be telling him to round up before the end of the day on that one.
I think it'd be better to have a specific when we know, personally, rather than taking guesses.
This has to be paid, and we have to have a number. The other we'll see eventually.
Yeah. Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And the other motion was in regards to the council approving the addition of a senior assessor position to the county's organizational chart to provide administration with the option of bringing assessment services in-house. Okay. Any questions or discussion? Clarence? Clarence is moving it. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Anything else today? All right. We finished our meeting by the looks of things then. So 2:48. Motion to adjourn at 2:48.